Hello everybody, welcome to my very first sewing stream. Let's see, I'm gonna move this desktop audio down just a little bit. Let me know how the levels are, because I moved some stuff around, including my cameras and the microphone. So, also Jared's not here, so any feedback that you guys have for volume or placement, things like that, I will try and pay attention to. Otherwise, welcome to my sewing stream. Sorry, still moving some things around. Hello everybody, welcome. I've got my tea. Oh, and my camera is gonna autofocus, but that's okay for today because we're gonna be moving around some, and so I want it to have the ability to reset itself when it needs to. Shout out to Next to Natural, Really Weird Dude, and Shafas Acedo, who all followed recently. So thanks, and welcome to our stream if you're here. Welcome, guys. Okay, so I said earlier that I wanted to do some sewing streams that would talk about just like basic information, how to get started, and how to start using your commercial patterns, which is just anything that you would buy in like a fabric store. And so I have one of these on hand. This is a Simplicity pattern. It's one of the easier pattern brands to use. This is 1465, and it's a regular looking, it's a really basic looking skirt, a regular skirt. Skirts can be all kinds of different things. You have circle skirts, obviously, and this one is a little bit more fitted than that. And I already got some of this stuff out, and I'll go through it here in a minute, but I kind of want to hang out for a second and make sure everybody is here that wants to be here. You guys are fantastic. So my laptop is a little bit farther away from me today because I have so much stuff in here, so I'm going to do my best to keep up with like chat comments and stuff, but if I miss a question, then just ask it again. Oh, awesome, Ashley's here. Hi, Ashley! Alright, so it looks like there's actually a lot of people here who I was expecting to see here, because we talked during my last stream about people who are interested in seeing the sewing streams. So I recognize some faces here of people that said that they really wanted this, and hopefully this will answer your questions moving forward. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and dive in. Talking a little bit about my materials first. I have this mat that I laid down here that I've had out for all of my streams. It's like my cutting mat that I work on. That is going to be crucial today because I'm going to be cutting all of my fabric with a rotary cutter. Oh, there we go. Like this. And so this is going to save me a lot of time as opposed to like pinning and using scissors. And it's one of my favorites. I've also got pattern weights here that are going to hold my pattern down and some pins. So that's all the basic stuff. My fabric that I'm using is a stretchy fabric. I got this from Mood. This is a knit, a black knit. It's like kind of thick, and I really like that. I like using thicker fabrics whenever I can, because they have more, I think, a nicer drape a lot of the time. Okay, so the reason why I'm using my final fabrics here and not going and doing a mock-up first is because I already did a mock-up last night. I made a different skirt with the same pattern. I teased on Twitter that I was going to make an Asami costume, and yeah, I've totally been working on that like already for several days. So this was the same skirt that I got, the same pattern that I got for Asami. Oh, and that's going to really annoy me. I might set up this camera to not do that autofocus because it's having trouble. Hold on just a second. But anyway, as you can see, the pattern itself has like 6 different options for different things you can do. Hold on, I can't even see this. This text is so tiny. Let me come around. Autofocus is off. Save. Okay, hopefully that is still in focus. And I'll turn that back on when I need to refocus in different areas. Alright, and now I can lean forward and you guys can see my cute hat, and we can keep going. Alright, let me see. I know I missed some comments here, so let me check in real quick. Violet Sand said that they finished their project today. That makes me happy to see. They made their own notebook from scratch, including a book cloth and pages. That's so badass. That's a really cool craft that I have not ever learned how to do, so congratulations on finishing something that you put your mind to. That is really exciting, and I'm glad to hear that the streams helped you do it. Anyway, back to this pattern. It has 6 different options here for different ideas of what kind of skirt you can make with this, and this is how a lot of patterns are set up. Hold on a second, Yes. No, I did not make my hat. I bought this hat on Etsy. Yeah, I've been buying a lot of clothes on Etsy to support independent designers. Anyway, sorry I'm so scatterbrained getting started today, but back to the pattern. This is basically just different ideas for things that you can do with this pattern, and all of the different options. So they've got like various prints depicted here. One of them has lace over it. 2 of them have this peplum, which is like an overlay thing that's in the front. And I don't need any of that crap. I just want this really, really basic skirt. And honestly, if I were only going to be making Celica skirt just for myself, I wouldn't even bother with this pattern. I would just probably make my own. But I wanted to go over this information, and there was apparently an interest in it, so that's what we're doing today. Nuptop, thank you for the bits. Appreciate that. Awesome. Getting us started on a good note. So another thing that I did already was take out this pattern because I used it last night for Asami, and so it is sort of a fitted skirt. This is the longer version of it, and this is the shorter version. Oh, and I need to talk about the information on everything before I actually get started. So as you're picking out patterns in the store, if you are starting your first cosplay and you don't want to make your own pattern and you're just trying to kind of get started with sewing, the things that you want to look for when you're picking a pattern are the placement of the seam lines. So all of these drawings include that information in them, and they do that intentionally. On this, there's like a smaller diagram on the back that's just line art that's a little bit easier to see sometimes, and this always includes all of the information for where the seams are placed. That's one of the biggest factors in recreating a cosplay design, if you want it to look really accurate, is recreating the silhouette and having your seams placed in the same places that that they are depicted in the artwork, if possible. That's not always possible, but it does make a difference, and it is something you should pay attention to. So whether you are directly matching art that was provided by the artist who, you know, maybe had a good idea of how fabric works and maybe doesn't, you want to be mindful of that when you're making your choices, because it has a really big effect on the shape of the garments that you make. Okay, so the one that we're going to be making is skirt number C, which is the most generic one out of all of them. It doesn't have an overlay, it doesn't have any lace, it doesn't have any of that crap, it's just a skirt. And so this is about as simple as patterns come. I already looked at it, it's 4 pieces, it's a front and a back piece basically, and then an inner waistband. Okay. Just making sure. Alright. I'm just checking out the chat and making sure that I'm not missing things. But okay, it sounds like Nuptup is having some problems, so good luck with that. But I'm just making sure that's not the stream as a whole. Alright, cool. So the next thing you need to pay attention to while you're buying your pattern, before you buy your pattern, you're picking it out in the store, is all of the information here. So this seems like a ton of information, and it kind of is. Half of it is in French, so I don't have to pay attention to that. If you speak French, then great, there's your information. For us English-speaking folks, this is all we need to pay attention to. And this at the top has fabric suggestions, which this one is lightweight to medium weight woven fabrics. And let's see, it also has guides for how much fabric you're going to need, as well as how much other stuff you're going to need. This one, notions, refers to a variety of different little sewing knickknacks, including zippers, any types of closures, and things of that nature fall under the notions category. So this is a 7 to 9 inch invisible zipper. It's black to match our skirt, and it is prescribed on the back of this package so that when I was in the store buying this pattern, I knew to also get this extra stuff that it is describing here. So after that, you can double check your size and make sure that your size is in the package that you're looking for. Generally, there are 2 packages, although, you know, depending on the company or depending on the pattern, there might be other variations. But generally, there's like a size 6 to 14, and then there's, what is it, the rest of them? This one goes, then there's this pattern, 16 through 22 is in a separate package. So make sure that you're looking at the back of the pattern and getting the correct size that you need, because it really sucks when you accidentally pick up the wrong package. The next thing that you need to look for is the body measurements section. So one thing to keep in mind with the sizing on these patterns is that they do not typically line up with with finished garment sizes that you are used to buying in the stores. So for instance, I'm like a size 6 in dresses typically if I'm out shopping at a department store trying to find a dress. According to the Simplicity patterns, I am a size 14, which is a huge difference. And even though that's not like my size in an average sort of way, it is the numbers that I need to pay attention to on this particular package. So keep that in mind. You know, it's kind of a shame that sizes are so widely varied between different brands and different, I don't know what you would call it. I guess sewing patterns versus finished garment patterns are completely different, or sizes. So, you know, keep that in mind. And it's a bummer that it is that way, because it can get really, really confusing, but don't be thrown off by that, and look for the numbers of your actual body. So on this one, it's bust, waist, and hips. Hips are specified as being 9 inches below the waist. Your waist in sewing is always considered the smallest part of your body, naturally, wherever your natural waistline, and it's usually right around the belly button. So if you've never taken your measurements before, have somebody help you, because it can be distorted when you're trying to wrap a tape around yourself. So it's always best to have somebody help you. Do it completely horizontally all the way around, and that will give you your bust, waist, and hip measurements, which you can base your sizing off of. I'm gonna check in really quickly again with the chat and make sure everything is so good. Alpaca Ash says that she made the mistake of cutting something to her store size and it was the size of a baby. Yep, I have absolutely done that before too, and that was one of my first mistakes when I made my very first skirt out of a pattern, was doing that for myself. So fair warning, look at the numbers. Numbers are important. Alright. A lot of the time you will find that you will be in between sizes. So for me, I am in between sizes almost always, because everybody's body is different. These are the standardized measurements, which is sort of an average of what humans typically are, typical human shapes, but almost no one is a perfect standardized average. Everybody is unique looking. We all have our own interesting shapes. And as you get into making your own garments, you will figure out what parts of your body are maybe different than average and learn how to accommodate with that. So for me, my waist is usually like a size small and my hips are usually a size large, because I just have really large hips. And so that's one thing that I have to keep in mind for myself whenever I'm working on patterns, is that that's one of the most typical alterations that I'll have to make for myself, is to accommodate for my hips. So that's for me. For you, it might be something totally different, but just keep that in mind. That we are all unique, and you will have to get a sense of how you might differ from the standardized patterns that are provided for by these lovely pattern companies. Okay. Below that, on the back of this pattern, there are measurements for fabric that you're going to need for every different version of the skirt. There's so much here, but there's really only very little information that you need. And it's a chart. So you find your size up along the top row, and then you find the skirt that you want to make along this like vertical column. And then wherever they meet up, that information meets up is how much fabric you need. So paying attention to this and spending some time reading it in the store will make sure that you have all of the supplies you need and get it all in one go. It can be useful to get some extra fabric sometimes if you're uncertain about it, or if you want to do a mock-up in the same fabric that you want your final skirt to be in, you could get like double the amount or whatever. But yeah, I have extra fabric because I'm making some other things. Inside your pattern envelope are going to be your instruction sheets that are on this kind of like newsprint paper, and then the super thin tissue paper that has all of the pattern pieces on them. And I have already separated the ones we're going to be using today so that I don't have to do all of that cutting and stuff right now on camera. But this is a general idea of what it all looks like and how it comes. You are going to have to separate the pieces that you need based on which version of the skirt that you're making. So I'm going to set all of this aside and then just take out the pieces that I've already prepared for us here. And let's see. If you guys have questions for me, it'll help me a lot if you use my Atelier Heidi name, like tag me in your question, because it'll be more obvious to me in the chat, and I'll try to pay extra attention to it. But once again, if I miss your question, then just ask it again, and I will hopefully eventually get to it. Okay, this is actually not the piece we need. Hello! My husband is home. I'm happy. Okay. So this is page 1 of our pattern. Hi. Thank you. And mine printed weird, but that's fine. It has all the information that I need. So open up your pattern instructions and find the one. Oh wow, you can really see the distortion in the camera now that I've got it. It's a little bit better. I think I bumped it. Alright, there we go. So this again has all of the drawings, and then it has a little diagram of all the different pattern pieces and a list of which one you need for which version of the skirt. So mine is skirt C, so now I'm only paying attention to which ones have the letter C on them, which in this case is going to be the front piece, the back piece, the front facing, and the back facing. And that is it. That's only 4 pieces out of the 12 that are packaged in this pattern. So like I said, this version C is the most basic. So we're just going through all of the information that can hopefully make you able to make these choices for yourself. Oh hey, hi Holly, nice to see you here. I'm like having to lean across my table just to see everything. But yes, welcome. I'm glad that you could join us tonight. Let's see what else we got. Alright. So there's a whole instruction section over like basic sewing tips and symbols and things like that. Most of these are not going to be necessary for what we're doing tonight. So depending on what your project is, you probably will need to read that stuff, but I don't need it right now. And likewise, there are some cutting layouts, which is a guide that the pattern tells you exactly the best way to cut your pieces out of the fabric to conserve as much fabric as possible. But with us, so if your pattern has a lot of pieces and it's really complex, that is really useful information. Ours is not, and so we don't really need that. Yes, Holly, it is like we're hanging out, except that we're over the internet. Welcome. Oh, sorry, Blue Menace. I tweeted a little while ago, but I haven't, I should tweet again. Oh well. Okay, so yeah, we're just getting started with the pattern basics. Violet Sand has a question for later on. No, I don't tack, so I'm just going to be pinning and clipping. But I'm going to try to stick in this order and try to get through this in a sort of semi-organized fashion. Okay. So, I'm flipping it over now, and all of this information is just for other versions of the skirt. So we are back to sewing directions. So see, we've already gotten through a whole page of this stuff. I think one of the reasons why people find sewing instructions so complicated is because there's just so much information, but realistically, we're skipping through so much of it because you don't need all of this information for each individual project. You only need a tiny piece of it. So, you know, you can read it and be thorough if you want all of that knowledge, but otherwise, most of this does not apply to what we are actually currently doing. Oh no. Holly says that patterns look like they're in another language to her. Holly, you can do this too. It's so easy. You just have to learn to figure out which information you need. Okay. Rabbit says, how do you know which fabric to use? I have tried to use patterns before and it's always too small. Like I said, the outside of the package has some fabric recommendations. I am actually ignoring the fabric recommendations, which is why I really didn't talk about it much. This recommends woven fabrics, and this one is a knit fabric that is stretchy. So because I've already gone through the process of making a mock-up, I know exactly how big those pattern pieces are, and I have an idea of how this fabric is going to behave when I start putting it together. I have decided to go my own way and just use the fabric that I want to use for this. But otherwise, if you're new to this, I highly recommend sticking to the recommended fabrics. The big difference between woven fabrics and knit fabrics is how the fibers are arranged, and usually that results in stretchy fabrics versus not stretchy fabrics. So I'm using a stretchy fabric when it recommends a non-stretchy fabric, and I have already made some adjustments to accommodate that. But if you are just trying to follow the instructions and just trying to make something, according to the information that you're given, definitely stick with the woven fabrics for this pattern. So that could be a part of it. I don't know exactly what you've tried to make or exactly why it didn't pan out, but that's one of the things that makes a big difference. All right. Awesome. Okay. So moving right along, I've separated my 4 pattern pieces already. I'll set this aside. I've got my mouse out here. Yay! Type in the chat. Okay. You can use an iron on your pattern pieces. I've already cut these out of the pages because, like I said, I was using this last night. You can iron them flat if you need to. Danny Hartel, thank you for the follow, as well as Dibby D. Okay. Hopefully I read that correctly. Thank you guys both, and welcome to the stream. So I prepared by cutting these out already. You can just lay down the pattern piece, free them from the other pieces, and separate them by what you need, of course. But after that, you can iron these with your iron on a low setting. This isn't too bad, so I'm not going to bother with that because I don't want to just take extra time out. What we are looking at here are the main 2 pieces of this skirt, and one of them is the front and one of them is the back. I added some extra material here to the sides because this was part of my what I was working on last night, was discovering exactly the fit that I wanted for this, and so I ended up adding a little bit of extra material onto the sides of my pattern. This is purely my own personal adjustment for me, and you might not need that at all. Red Roses, thank you for also following. Okay, cool. Hi, Danny. I guess Holly and Danny know each other. That's awesome. Welcome to the stream, Danny. Anyway. They have a number of other symbols on them that we'll go into as we're working with them. The big difference between these 2 pieces are that one of them has a center back seam and one of them is cut on the fold. So basically, this will result in 2 pieces of fabric that are mirror images of each other. This will result in 1 piece of fabric that is folded over, and this is like it's mirrored from this point, but it's all 1 piece. So I need to be careful of that because it's really easy to not cut something on the fold when you need to, and then you end up wasting fabric and have to recut it, and it's a huge pain in the ass. So pay attention to this. This, if you can hopefully make it out, has a big symbol with some large arrows pointing to this side to remind you to cut it on the fold. So for now, I'm going to set that one aside and work with the other one because of the way that I have my fabric arranged. So this is 2 layers, not that you can necessarily tell on camera. This is 2 layers of the black fabric that I'm going to be using folded over. This is folded along the selvage edge, which is the machine-made edge of the fabric. when you buy it, and this is the cut edge where it was cut by the person who prepared it and sold it to me. So I am lining this up. The very edge, about a 1-inch width along this edge line, is not usable because of the way that it looks different than the rest of the fabric, and that's part of it being the selvage edge. So unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be picked up on camera, but that's information to know. So that's why I'm placing my pattern here and not like here. Just giving myself a little bit of margin. Also, my fabric, whoever cut this fabric didn't do an entirely straight job, and so there's like this much that is unusable because of the way it's folded. And I don't know if that's picking up on camera. But in general, you want to start on the outer edges. So the fold of my fabric is up there, and the outer edges are down here, and so that's why I'm starting with this piece first. So some things to keep in mind as you're laying this out. I went ahead and cut it free of the other pieces already, but you can do that in one fell swoop if you plan for it well enough. Depending on who you are, for me, I'm making the largest size of this particular pattern that came in this package. So for me, I just went ahead and cut it out and didn't worry about like trying to save the pattern or save any of the extra paper around the edges. If you are not going to make the largest size in the package, it has a number of other lines that designate like the outline of the other sizes. So if I were making a size 6, for example, I would be cutting along this line instead. And that's quite a bit of extra material. So depending on who you are, if you're planning on reusing this pattern to make a number of other sizes, it might be more important to transfer and like copy it to another paper and then use that one for your sewing, so that you can preserve the other sizes and have it all available to you for future use. But since I'm making the largest size, I was just like, whatever, and just went ahead and cut it out. So that's a preference difference, I guess. The next thing that I'm doing is laying out my little pattern weights, which are just doing the job of holding the paper down. Some people use pins to pin this to the fabric. When I first started sewing, and it was like my very first sewing project, I did pin it down to my fabric. The problem that you can run into there is that, oops, I just stabbed myself with a pin. I'm gonna pour some of those out. If you are using a pin to attach them together to prevent it from moving around, it is creating a little tiny lump in the material. Maybe that's not completely apparent on camera, but anyway, it's there. And if you're working in person, you can see that it exists. So this is creating some distortion between the paper itself and then the fabric below it, and then also the second layer of fabric below that. Because we are cutting two pieces at once. That's why our material is folded over. Zap the Pikachu, thank you for following. Checking back in on the chat. Cactus Wolf says that now they understand why pattern weights are called pattern weights. That's right. It's because they do the job of, they're like paper weights for patterns. So as I was saying, what was I saying? Pins create distortion and pattern weights do not. So that is one of the reasons why I prefer this method. I also like the expedited cutting of using this rotary cutter and just zipping along the outside, which we are about to do. Before we do that, I wanted to acknowledge a few other things with this pattern. Oh, actually, yeah, I should be paying attention to this. This skirt actually includes 2 lengths, and I almost did it wrong. There's the bottom length here, and then there's another horizontal line that's several inches above that. And this is to designate the 2 different lengths of the 2 skirts that are like, there's 2 skirt designs that you can choose from in this pattern. So we're making the shorter version of the skirt because I don't need all this extra fabric. And so what I'm gonna do is just fold it up on that line really carefully. You can cut it apart if you need to, but I don't in this situation, so I'm not going to. And that's it. That's all I have to do to get this shorter length of skirt. And this pattern does also include seam allowances and hems, like basically an extra margin of fabric around all of the edges, and that is included already before I get started. Not every single pattern is like that, but typically your commercial patterns, modern commercial patterns are. All right, checking back in at the chat. If anybody has questions, don't forget to throw them up there, but I'm just gonna keep going on. Okay, so this is my rotary cutter. This is a 45mm blade that rotates, hence the name. And it's basically a pizza cutter of fabric. And it gets a little bit fuzzy, so you want to try to keep it clean. And yeah, I'm just gonna start cutting all the way around the lines. Oh, there are some notches, which are basically like little registration marks placed around the outside of this piece. And the way that they are drawn is that they are jutting into the pattern piece, but the way that they are meant to be used is to leave a little tab on the outside of the pattern piece. So that can get confusing if it's your first time cutting a pattern. Do not cut these little V's out of the seam allowance. If anything, leave yourself a little bit of like a little tiny extra tab sticking out, or you can just use a fabric pen, marker, whatever to draw markings on. In this particular case, I don't need them. This is really, really basic. These sort of registration marks are really useful when you're combining two different curves that you need to figure out exactly where the two pieces of material need to line up with each other. But this one is so basic, you can see exactly how they line up together, and it's almost a perfect, I think it pretty much is a perfect like mirror image of that shape. So because of that, I'm not worried about the registration marks at all. I don't need to worry about the tabs or maintaining the alignment because it's gonna happen naturally. So, one more time checking in on the chat. Everything's good. Okay, so I'm ready to start cutting. I need to be careful along my bottom line here. Luis Bardock, thank you. And Christy Cosplay, thank you for following. Welcome, guys. I need to be careful of not nicking the paper on this end of the pattern because it's folded over, and so I'm going to end up cutting into both layers if I do that. But that's fine. I've got a nice fresh blade and you can just see how it just like completely separates. I don't need to do that right now, but I got excited to show you guys. So you want to avoid like shaving off the edges of your pattern pieces, however possible. Hey, thanks for the cheer, Within One Tiger. Yeah. Awesome. I don't know why your name isn't showing up on the side, but I see it in the chat. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Bits! As well as, Flizgum. Thank you for the follow. Alright, now I'm going to continue cutting this very carefully so that I don't cut my fingers or into my pattern. Alright, that's pretty much it for this. You want to be careful as you separate them in case there are any like stragglers, which I have a few, of the fibers that don't want to separate. I always get like impatient about separating my fabric because I like to see which edges I've already cut. But there we go. That's all there is to it. So this is much faster than using scissors. And like I mentioned at the beginning, similar to using weights instead of pins, is that there's less distortion. Because if you're using scissors and you have to pick the fabric up and hold it in your hands and move it around, and that's just gonna make you more prone to, oops, that's getting caught a little bit and shifting. You're opening yourself up to make more mistakes or like tiny errors, which isn't that big of a deal with something really simple like this. But if you're working on something that's really complicated or precise, it can be a big deal. And your mistakes can be kind of compounded into a bigger mistake that you don't want. So, in general, I try to always have the approach of being like as precise as I can. And, do my best. Okay, cool. Oh my gosh, Holly's all of these little birds. Paint. I don't know anything about that. Within One Tiger said that someone asked about the sharpening of the rotary blade. There is actually a special tool for sharpening that. Let's see. Ganshi has followed, as well as Ponipigu. Ponipigu, thank you for following. Welcome. Okay, cool. There is such a thing as a rotary blade sharpener. It's a little, like, circular spinner that you put the blade inside and you twist it and it sharpens it. I don't have one, or I would show it to you guys, but I usually just replace these blades pretty frequently. This one's easy to do because you just pop it out and then the whole thing just lifts off. I'm not going to do it right now because I'll end up cutting myself on camera. Just watch me. So yeah, that's how that works. I tend to replace them fairly often. Okay, before I pick this up and move on to doing my next piece, I want to make sure that all of my markings are transferred to the piece below. And I have a special tool for that as well, so let me grab it. Who we got? Gretel Locks, or Gretel Locks. Thank you so much for following. Okay, so this is some really old dressmaker's tracing paper that I got from my grandmother. I bet you can't find this packaging anymore because it just looks ancient. But anyway, this contains several different colors of this, I think it's waxed paper. And this substance, this pigment will be transferred to the piece below. I'm gonna see if I can do two at once because I like to live on the edge. Okay. So one other feature of the pattern that we need to pay attention to is the placement of darts. In this case, it's a simple triangular dart. A dart is basically a point where the fabric is connected and sewn in, usually in like a triangle shape. I'll show you guys as we do it, put it together. So if you're unfamiliar with that, just sit tight and it'll all make sense very soon. But basically this is a triangular shape that is depicted here on the pattern, and there's three different options depending on what size you're using. So I am going to transfer this marking onto our fabric using this transfer paper. So I'm sliding it under the bottom piece, and then I'm sliding the top piece onto the top piece. So that's intentional. I just cut two pieces at once. There's two pieces of fabric under here, and I want them to be mirror images of each other. So I need to make sure that the markings are on each side of each piece and not the same side of both pieces, if that makes sense. Oh my gosh, there's so much, so many like emotes in the chat right now. Tokens has followed, as well as Koyuki, and thank you. Mira Scarlet is here. Oh, they're spreading the creative love. Oh my gosh, this is a raid. Thank you so much, Mira. Mira's another awesome streamer who does sewing streams. So thanks for raiding us and showing up, and welcome everyone. If you're just joining us, we're going through the basics of pattern making, or not pattern making, but using commercial patterns. And right now we're about to transfer our lines to this fabric that I cut. So the other thing that I have, it's very similar to the pizza cutter, except that it doesn't cut. It creates markings, and it's got this sort of like serrated edge, but again, it's not a blade, so it's not actually sharp, but it's gonna make little markings by rolling across the paper and pressing it into the fabric. So I'm just going to try to brace my paper and not move it around too much. And then I roll my little marking tool right over these lines. So there's three variations of this dart on the pattern depending on your size, and I'm only doing the one. Moonlight Mirage, thank you for the follow. We're being rated still. Awesome. Okay, well thank you guys so much. Thanks for the raid, and thanks for stopping by. Alright, Mira, have a great night. feel free to lurk, of course, and we will see you guys. Thank you all for joining us, all of Miss Mira Scarlett's viewers. Okay, so let me peel this back up. I don't know, yeah, you can see the indentions on the paper that I made, and awesome. If you can also see this, I don't know if I can see it on screen, but I now have this V that has been transferred into both the top and the bottom. The bottom's pretty faint, but it's gonna work. That'll be enough. I guess I could redo that by hand if I really want to. But there we go. There is my, my transfer of the dart. You know, I think I will feel better if I do that second piece as well. So I'm going to... How am I going to arrange this? I'm going to lift my top piece off and then just lay the pattern back down on top of the bottom piece. So there we go. And this one still needs to be on the underside and not the top side. I'm just going to redraw this line and make sure it's super clear by laying this out and rolling over it one more time. Sometimes that works, but I think this fabric is a little bit too thick for me to get a really precise line, and it looked fuzzy and I didn't want to deal with fuzziness right now. So one more time, rolling my little serrated marker guy. And let's see how that went. Much, much easier to read. So that's our goal. And like I mentioned, these are strategically placed on either side. So this is the mirrored image. This is the center back seam, and they are on matching sides. Not matching sides, opposite, complementary sides. I hope this makes sense. You guys let me know if this isn't making sense, and I'll try again. Alright, let me back in here. Let's see. Oh, Commander Holly is asking, what kind of paper can you use? This paper is still sold in stores. I think it's just the particular brand and style that I have. It says 90 cents on it, so I'm gonna guess this is from like the 1960s. Fitz G, thank you for following, as well as Banhammer J. I missed that notification. So this is Dressmaker's tracing paper. This is still available in stores. You can still pick this up at Joann or wherever. But this particular like design is probably super outdated. Let's see. Okay, someone already answered that question. Everybody's answering each other's questions on the chat, which is so awesome because it makes my life easier. So thank you guys. Okay, continuing on, I'm gonna have to rearrange my fabric to pull some more into view, and we also need to cut this other piece on the fold. So I'm going to make some quick accommodations for that. First, let me fold up this other piece that I don't need. If you want to make your own patterns, I like to buy, what is it called? Medical exam table paper. So like when you go to the doctor and they put you on the exam table and you sit there and there's like a awkward paper covering it, I like to buy rolls of that stuff because it comes in long strips, and make my own patterns using that tracing paper, or using it as tracing paper. So there's an option for you if you want to make your own patterns. I actually like bought that stuff in bulk just so that I would have a ton of it if I ever needed to. Well, I do make patterns pretty regularly. Okay, so I'm gonna just clear my whole table again. Get that out of the way. Kitten asking, can you, someone also asked if I could use pattern weights to hold down the wax paper. You can. For me, I didn't really think that I needed to because it was not really going to go anywhere. But if you are in that position, then yes, you absolutely can use the weights to hold it down. Okay, this is the other portion of my fabric that was out of view. This is a fold. So this is the edge of the cut edge that I just cut, and the other side is the fold. So I need to cut on the fold. Now, depending on if my fabric were a shorter width, I would just line this up and cut it and call it a day. But if I did that on this piece, I would be wasting all of this fabric because I would end up with two long, weird strips that wasn't super usable. So to overcome that, I'm going to shift where my fold is. And let's see, how wide is my pattern piece? The pattern piece is about yay wide, so that needs to become my new fold. And I'm just going to shift this down. Sapphire Gray asking, who is making my sword? My sword is, well, okay, I was talking to a prop maker about making the sword, and we couldn't find really clear references of the design that we were both happy with, and I decided to wait for the game to come out and double check that that is beyond shadow of a doubt the sword that I want, because she's depicted with like multiple swords, and some of them are really plain, and the one that is like on the cover that she's holding, we can't find any detailed images of that. So for the time being, I'm still talking to that guy about making my sword for me, but as of right now, we have not like agreed on details and design and price, and so for that reason, I won't say who's making it. But once all of those things are agreed upon and it's like, you know, set in stone, then I'll talk more about that. But for the time being, I'm just not going to have a sword right away. But I'm also not going to wear this at Fanime. I talked about that in a previous stream. I'll probably have it at Anime Expo. And hopefully by then I'll also have a sword, but who knows? We'll see. The world is full of possibilities. Okay, so now, again, with the black fabric, it might be slightly hard to see. I need to make sure my grain line is still lined up. But now I've basically adjusted this fabric so that the cut line is right here. And so all of the fabric has been shifted to one side, so I'm conserving it as best as possible. All right, back to the questions. The fabric that I'm using is a black ponte knit, which is a thicker, like, sturdy knit fabric. Am I going to dye my hair red? My hair is already red, but no, I am not going to dye it to be her shade of red. I am going to wear a wig. Okay, so once again, I folded this up to the appropriate length because we're making the shorter skirt version from this pattern. And I have moved my fabric around and lined this up with the fold line according to these arrow markings. Okay, Nerds and Crafts asking, what time am I streaming to until? Depends on how much we get done. I'm gonna try to do this all tonight if I can. I might end up splitting it into 2 streams because we are gonna do a stream tomorrow and add Thursday streams to my permanent schedule, I'm pretty sure. Okay, cool. So this is now lined up all the way along here. Mink the Drawing Researcher, thank you for following. I'm gonna move my laptop closer actually, because I don't need it to be this far back. It was just hanging out there because of so much fabric. Oh, it's so much better. Okay. Sorry, guys. This is what I need. Cool. So now you can see me, and I can see you, and this makes everything a lot easier. Alright, so once again laying this out, I could iron my pattern if I really wanted to, but I don't think this is going to be a problem. There are a few creases in it, but it's okay. Just like before, putting some weights along the outside. Bird Girl, thank you for the follow. Got everything lined up how we want it, and I will go ahead and start cutting. Well, there's another thing I didn't really mention is grain lines. Grain lines are important, but all of the lines have, all of the patterns have lines that are designating basically how it needs to be positioned on the fabric. Usually in this case, it's just the fold line. In other cases where it's not cut on the fold, it'll just be a long line with arrows on it that is indicating where the grain of the fabric needs to be. So if you're not familiar with those terms, the grain of the fabric refers to like the orientation of the fibers. On a woven fabric, that is basically vertical and horizontal fibers that are woven in a pattern to create the fabric itself. In a knit fabric like this one, it is they are looped together, just like the process of knitting by hand, but it's much smaller and done by machine. So if I were following the instructions and using the woven fabrics that are suggested for this pattern, I would need to be extra careful to make sure that I'm working along the grain lines and going parallel or perpendicular to like the cross grain. My camera was a little bit tilted. Well, it still is, whatever. And again, with my knit fabric, I need to make sure that it is squared up too, so that my stretch is going in the appropriate direction. But if you know very much about sewing, you probably already know that stuff. I like to be as thorough as possible and give that information to people who might be brand new. Okay, and since my last time of doing 2 at once didn't pan out too well, I am going to do 1 at a time this time. Take my tracing wheel. Back to the correct dart. There we go. Now, get rid of all these weights and move it around. The rotary cutter and the mat is a really great investment. Leoto is asking, do I like it more than, I guess, scissors? I definitely prefer this to using scissors. I was talking a little bit earlier about how you get less distortion in your fabric and in your pieces when you are using a rotary cutter rather than pinning and using scissors, because you're having to move the fabric around and manipulate it and pick it up. Whereas with the rotary cutter, everything can stay flat and can stay lined up, and it's much easier to manage in that way. So lining that back up with the tracing paper now on the bottom, or the transfer paper, so that I can make these markings. Now if I go over this enough times, it's going to tear right through the pattern paper, but I pretty much only make costumes for me, so that shouldn't be too much of a problem if I make some permanent cuts. Hey, Holly says that pattern weights work well on foam too. That's good information. Annoying Flowers, thank you for the follow. That's a Pikachu heading out. Thank you so much for stopping by and coming to the stream. So, moving right along. This is now one continuous piece that is, when folded over, makes the size of our pattern piece. So now we have 3 pieces total, 2 back pieces, one for the left, one for the right, and then we have the center piece that is all one thing with some darts in the little triangular markings that we've made. So setting that aside, and now we only have the facings to cut out. And I'm going to put my tracing paper away. On this one you can totally see that I used it for all of the Zelda designs, which that pattern is on my Tumblr for free if you want that. But this is what I used. This is how I transferred all of the markings onto Zelda's fabric before I hand embroidered all of that. So yeah, tracing paper is extremely useful, and I'm struggling awkwardly to get it back into the package. There we go. And I'll fold this one up too and set it aside. Okay. So the only ones I have left are these little ones. This is what I was referring to with the lines. This is the grain line indicator. It's just a little line that needs to be lined up with our piece when we cut it. And then on this side, it is once again a fold line. So let me see if I can, let me see how I can position this using the rest of our fabric here. So this is what's like left in this piece. I have quite a bit more, but I'm trying to conserve as much as possible. And this is what's left after cutting out our other pieces, basically. Oh, thank you, Kitten, for sharing that link to my Tumblr. Yeah, got all kinds of resources and stuff there, including the Zelda pattern, if you want that one for free. And neither one of these are going to fit without changing the orientation, which I need to figure out if that is going to make a difference or not. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't, and it depends on what your fabric is. So this fabric is stretchy, and I need to determine whether or not it has the same stretch going both directions, which it kind of feels and looks like it does, or at least it's very, very similar, in which case I don't care if I cut it perpendicular or not. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go for it with this section that I've already got out here. So that's something to take into account. On some other fabrics, it might be super, super necessary to cut it this way instead of this way, which is what I'm about to do. But on this one, it's not going to make that much of a difference, so I'm just not going to sweat it. This one is not cut on the fold, this one is. So this is my new fold that I just folded over, and I'll move it up as close to the top as I can before it reaches the edge of that bottom piece. And then throw some weights on it. All right, checking back in here with the chat. That Loaderbot is heading out because it's 5 a.m. Well, I don't blame you. Have a good night, Loaderbot. Thanks for stopping by, even though it's 5 a.m. Nerds and Crafts is saying that they basting spray their patterns to everything. That's a perfectly valid thing to do if you need to do that. I can get by pretty easily with the weights. But yeah, do whatever techniques you need to. Basting spray is a wonderful tool, and I use it for a lot of stuff. Okay, so if I'm looking at these pieces head on, this is gonna waste a lot of fabric if I try to cut it out here. I could cut it out down here, and it would still waste, you know, some fabric. I can also flip it over. So this one does not need to be cut on the fold. So as long as I'm flipping it over and maintaining that grain line, I can move it up here because I'm cutting two pieces at once. This one is one piece mirrored, and this is two pieces that are mirrored because, yeah, it's still connected on the fold. So, with that in mind, I'm just going to flip it over and do the back side. So, I'm always trying to conserve as much fabric as possible, and that includes like strategically arranging the pieces on the fabric to maximize it as much as possible. Oh, Alpaca Ash is heading out, is that it? I missed some things. Let me double check. Oh, yeah, she's gonna go eat some foods. That's cool. Beanie Coffee, thank you for joining us. Welcome and thank you for the follow. And now I'm going to continue cutting. Now, it's good to always be sure that you are not putting your fingers in the path of the rotary cutter, because this is extremely sharp, or it should be extremely sharp to do the job very well. And it's very, very easy to accidentally cut yourself. So always be as careful as possible when you're doing this kind of thing. When I need to like press down on the edge, usually I will press down on the pattern weights themselves like this and move that toward the edge rather than putting my fingers that close to the blade. And now I'm holding my fabric down to prevent it from distorting, but I'm making sure that my finger is outside of the pathway of where this blade is heading. So you can work in small sections. If you try to do one like long continuous motion, it can lead to your fabric like getting nudged out of position. So I kind of make like little movements like that and just go kind of slowly. Once again, up the side. There we go. And now it is free, and all I have wasted is this little tiny strip that is connecting them. Whenever I have little bitty like tails of fabric, I usually just slice them off. Allison Howell, thank you for the follow. So out of all of that, I used not a ton of fabric. I'm gonna go ahead and cut this off too. And this was my only like weird remaining strip from this like section of the fabric. So that was awesome. I conserved a lot of fabric to use for the other pieces of this costume. Yeah, Tanya Chai is saying that sometimes pattern instructions tell you to flip pieces over to keep the nap going the right way. That's a really good point. Depending on what type of fabric you're using, like velvet, for instance, is really tricky. You have to make sure that you are being consistent. Nap refers to like fibers that are sticking up off of the surface. So if you think of velvet and how it's fuzzy and it's almost like fur-like, that is a nap. And not all naps look like velvet, but that's one of the most obvious examples. So to make sure that the fabric looks the same from panel to panel, you need to make sure that the nap is arranged in the same direction. Like always cut all of your pieces going in one same direction. Don't flip them around, don't turn them, unless you're instructed to, obviously. So that the light hits them the same way and that the nap lines up. Okay. Yeah, within Nerds and Crafts is suggesting that you can use washers that you get from Home Depot. That is what we did at my school. I learned some of my sewing skills when I was in the BFA program for theater. And one of the things that they did in the shop there, in the costume shop, was to make their own pattern weights out of washers that were just dipped in Plasti Dip, and that's it. They just got really big, like heavy washers, and also some like little nuts, and they then just dipped them in Plasti Dip so that they would have this like rubbery coating on them and not slide around so much. There you go. You can use whatever you need to as a pattern weight, but it's useful to have little dedicated tools. Okay, so now we've finally got all of our pieces cut out, which is not very many. The facings actually need to have interfacing, which I have not cut yet. I probably could have done that all together, but whatever. Let me grab my interfacing and we'll cut that out too. And kind of keep this systematic. So we'll do all of our cutting at once. This is a fusible interfacing. It's thin, and its job is to reinforce the fabric a little bit. In this case, it's also going to prevent these sections from stretching. But generally, this is just to reinforce the fabric. How do I want to do this? I'm still going to have to cut it on the fold. So how about like that? So this one is cut on the fold. for sure. And this one can be cut separately. Now, interfacing does sort of have a grain line, but it's not as important as the fabric grain line, so I think that in this case I'm just going to ignore it in favor of cutting my pieces with as little waste as possible. Cal Clara is asking, what's this playlist on? I'm loving it. I'm glad you're loving it. This is mostly DJ Cutbin. It's all Game Chops, which is his label. Let me double check this particular song. This is Maybe Village by DJ Cutman. So go check out DJ Cutman on Spotify or wherever. He's a really cool guy and he does a lot of awesome video game remixes, among other things. Hi Potion Seller, glad you could join us. I feel like I've probably missed a lot of comments since I'm just on a roll with my like pattern cutting fabric spiel. So I'm trying to keep this like focused and information based, but I will try to answer as many questions as I can. Within One Tiger says, I thought interfacing was always white. Not always. They make white and black interfacing and maybe other colors too, but I've mostly seen white and black, and it's great for when you're using, like, whenever I use any sort of darker fabrics, I always go with black. Any sort of lighter fabrics, go with white. Yeah, that's all you need. Okay, so people are saying that it does come in colors. I haven't seen the colored stuff, but that's awesome. But definitely white and black, usually. Yeah, Nerds and Crafts is saying that it's also useful for buttonholes so that they don't warp over use. And yeah, basically the interfacing is reinforcing the fabric and preventing warping and things of that nature. So I'm going to try to just cut it off of the rest of this piece. So I can get rid of this. There we go. So there's one. We've got mirrored image. This stuff is fusible on one side only, so keep that in mind. For our purposes, you know, that's great. I've got it cut on the fold and mirrored the same way that I did my fabric so that we would end up with the correct number of pieces. If you are cutting just one piece and it's not symmetrical, make sure that you have the fusible side on the side that you need it. Cool. So now I have the exact same pattern pieces that I just cut out of interfacing. So there are two back facings to go with our two back skirt pieces, and there's one front facing which aligns with our single front piece. Violet Sin is asking, am I lining the skirt? No, I'm not going to line the skirt, partly because it's stretchy and I don't feel like it's necessary, and because she's wearing so many layers, it's just, I don't think it's necessary. So, I would, if it were a woven fabric, I would line it, but in this particular instance, I don't feel the need to line this garment, so. All right, awesome. I think that answered most of our questions. Now I'm going to improvise here. Evil Crash donated $5. Oh, thank you so much, Evil Crash. And what did they come with a note saying, here's funds to buy Aries toys to keep him off work tables. Thank you so much. Yes, he has been very naughty. If you follow my social media, I caught my cat on my ironing board the other day, just chilling, just taking a nap, and I was so angry because he knows he's not allowed up there. But he's fine. So this is actually a sleeve board, but for my purposes right now it's a mini ironing board because I wanted something that I could put on my table here. So I'm just gonna iron these and fuse it on top of this guy so that I don't have to do it off camera over there. Celexius, thank you for following. Danny, thanks for coming and have a great night. Nice to meet you. Nerds and Crafts saying, have you ever just ironed a section to keep it like on the fabric so that it doesn't shift around? Usually I iron the whole thing because usually that's what I need. But yeah, I have done that before, I guess. If you need to just like tack it down in one area, you can do that. Okay, so I'm just gonna line these pieces up. This is the interfacing on top with the sticky side down. Or, well, it's not sticky, but it will be once I heat it up. And I'm gonna work in sections here. This is ready to go. It's on a, well, now it's on a polyester setting, which I think is what this fabric is. It's gonna be fine. What it is, it's gonna be fine. And I'm just going to press that one section at a time and work my way across here. Now, when you're ironing your clothes or whatever, it's common to like move the iron across the work and like slide it. Oh, that's not, it needs to heat up more because I left it sitting for so long. Also, Aries bad boy, says Holly. Yes, he's been very naughty. Mandolin says that we're less than 10 follows away from 1,500. I didn't know that. That's exciting. Thank you. So hopefully we can get 10 more follows before I'm done here. Nerds and Crafts asking about my iron. This is a Shark Professional 1500 watts. It's not like an actual like pro iron. It's just something I bought at like Walmart, I think, or Target. Let me see how it's doing now. If that's hot enough. But basically, as I was saying, I'm leaving the iron stationary rather than moving it, like skimming it along the surface, because that would move the, oh, that's much better. That would move the interfacing, and I don't want that. So I'm just going to work in sections. Oh, is that lined up how I want it? Yes. I'm just going to work in sections and press it without sliding it. Captain Gunboots is asking, did I sharpen my pizza cutter? My pizza cutter, I don't have a pizza cutter sharpener. I just replaced the blades. But yes, I have replaced the blade recently, so I have a very sharp pizza cutter. Panache Dash, thank you for the follow, as well as Crystal Fear. Thank you for the follow. This is getting just a little bit stuck down to our ironing board. Only Slightly Lost has also followed. Thank you so much. Let's see. We had a question. Starry Nighthawks is asking, do you ever steam baste around the edges first? No, not really. Only if it's necessary. Which usually I don't think it is. At least not for this type of project. So I'm just going to go over this a little bit. And just kind of work my way along. Yeah, thank you for the follow. Awesome, we're getting a number of followers are coming out of the woodworks. Thank you guys. Thanks for joining us. Alright, so I'm letting this kind of cool down a little bit before I move it around too much, and that is because the glue, or well, the adhesive that's on this is tacky. It's soft and it's activated when it's hot, and basically you want it to cool down completely before you start handling it, otherwise it could potentially shift around. So I'm shaving off just the tiniest amount of like overhanging material there, and I'm gonna set this aside. And now to do the same for these other two pieces. Now, these are a mirrored image of each other, and so this is a potential spot where you could make a mistake if you're not paying attention. These are mirror images of each other, but well, I guess these are only sticky on one side. They only have the fusible stuff on one side, but yeah. So this is not interchangeable. So I need to make sure that I'm applying it to the correct side on each one, like this, and just do them separately in that way. So I guess this is not a place, if these were completely symmetrical, then this would be a place where you would make more errors, I guess. So false alarm, but still something to be mindful of is that you're putting your interfacing on the correct side of your fabric, because that's a really annoying mistake to make. Let's see. Dragon Prince 66, thank you for following, as well as Miss Lilac Mystic, thank you for following. Oh, this is awesome. We're gonna hit our goal for tonight really soon. Good night, Spoopy Sparrow. Thank you for joining us. So that picked my piece up a little bit. It's still really warm, so I'm gonna let that guy chill. I'll do the second one. Space Guy Lewis, thank you for following, as well as Penguin Pancake, thank you for the follow. Welcome to our stream here tonight. Oh, congratulations! Cactus Wolf is graduating. That's really exciting, even though they're apparently not thrilled about the robe that they'll be wearing. But that's still an awesome achievement, so congratulations on all your hard work. That's so cool. This one is a little bit lumpy, so I'm going to move the iron and probably clean my iron if it's having any of that tackiness clinging to it. But that's fine. Cool. I'm going to return the iron to the ironing table so that I don't accidentally burn myself on it, which would totally happen if I left it here. So, one moment. Let's go back to our pattern instructions. Let's go back to our tea. Hey, 1,500 follows? Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks for keeping an eye on that too, because I can't during a stream, so thank you. That is exciting. Alright, now that I have chapped up, I can return to my sewing progress. Alright, so these are now not really stretchy like they were before. I guess it still has a tiny bit of stretch, and that interfacing is a little bit of give. But other than that, these are thicker now and sturdier, and they're going to provide an interior facing on our pieces. So I don't need them yet. I'm going to set them aside for right now, and I think we're going to work on our darts first. Let's see. Let's see what the instructions say. This is the front. This is the front. Hey! Who we got? Within One Tiger again for celebrating the 1500. I appreciate that. Thank you for the 500 bits. Appreciate you. Okay. Back to our pattern instructions. Or is this not the front page still? Oh, I put them aside over here, so I don't need that right now. This is the piece that I need. Back to the beginning. Alright, the first thing that it wants us to do is stay stitch the top of our pattern pieces. So it gives us the definition of stay stitching here, which is, well, it's not quite a definition, but it says, stay stitch the upper edge of the front and back panels, the main panels of the skirt, basically. And the stitching stays in permanently and helps prevent stretching on curved edges. So that's what stay stitching is. And for us, what that means is that I'm going to quickly sew a line along the top of the, basically where the waistband is. And I don't want my pieces to stretch on that particular line. Like the fabric itself will stretch, but the seams will not stretch. And so the stay stitching is going to help keep everything stabilized. So I need to change my camera to go over to the sewing machine, and I kind of want to just like quick sew this. Yeah, because I need to do it before I do the darts. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna just move my laptop around and let you guys get a little view of my sewing machine. This is going to be really quick, and then we're going to come back to the table. And then when I move in a more permanent fashion, a little bit later on, I will move the big camera too. But for right now, how's that? You can sort of see what's going on. Okay, so now I'm just in the upper corner of your screen for a few minutes, and then I'll be back at the table. So I don't want to make any permanent adjustments. So I'm going to do my stay stitching. I've already got black thread lined up. I've already got my correct stitch setting and type. And I want this stay stitch to be within the seam allowance, so I'm just going to stitch like kind of along the width of the foot that I have in here right now. Okay, so there's one line. I've got two more to go. And oh, you can see my darts much better on this top camera. So there's most of that step already. Let me do these next two really quickly, and then I'll be back at the table. Another one, and our last one. Cool. So hopping back up here to the table. How's it going, everybody? Peents is a holly stream, people are saying. Okay. Rabbit is asking again, how do you, aside from pattern recommended fabrics, how does one decide what fabric to use? I try to be as accurate to what I believe the fabric the character wears, but I don't know, I basically have no knowledge when it comes to this stuff. So, yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. One of the things that draws me to certain fabric types is to think about like the world of the source material. So a good example of that is Zelda, that I just did that costume. And for Zelda, she's a princess, obviously, and I wanted her to have fabrics that reflected her status. So I wanted to use fabrics that would be conceivably worn by a princess, and to really like nail the quality and just like the shininess of it. Oh, sorry. But also to kind of work within the, let's see, how do I phrase this? So obviously Hyrule is not a real place in a real time, but there's sort of like a medieval style to everything. So for instance, you're not going to get like, polyester and spandex have not existed, and that doesn't mean that you have to stick to like the rules of the world or anything like that. But I like to use natural fabrics or natural fibers for anything that I'm doing that is remotely historical, because a lot of the synthetic fabrics, most synthetic fabrics, didn't exist more than 100 years ago. So for polyester, spandex, stuff like that is man-made, it would not be available in a world like that. Now, that's a personal preference. I'm not telling you that it's wrong to ever use anything that's like out of character for like the world where the costume exists in. But that is a guideline that you can opt to use for yourself if you want to create a more realistic, I guess, texture or style to what you're doing. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I have a few favorite fabrics. I like natural fibers a lot because with cosplay, I'm typically making things that are like, if not actually historical costumes, but like fantasy historical, let's say. So like, yeah, anything that takes place in like a fantasy environment where there's, you know, princesses and stuff like that. I will keep that in mind when I am deciding my fabric choices. Okay. Briefly back to what we're currently doing here on the stream. I have we'll show it in this camera where it shows up better. I have my dart here, which I'm about to start pinning together. And my markings are on, this is the front piece, so both the same side here. I have two darts that are drawn out. I need to fold the fabric along this triangle and make it come to a point, and then I'm going to sew along the line that I transcribed while I was copying my pattern over. So I am pushing this pin through both sides and trying to line up those guidelines that I've drawn. Okay, yeah, Dr. Cantress says certain fabrics become cost prohibitive when doing historical. That's very, very true. So it completely depends on what your budget is, what your personal like goals are for that costume. For me, that's what I like to do, but that's not feasible for everyone. So some fabrics that are not, you know, expensive silks, like cotton sateen, is a really, really great fabric. It's cotton that is woven together with a satin weave. So, fun fact that a lot of people don't know, satin is a weave and not a type of fabric, not a fiber. So what that means is that any fibers can, well, lots and lots of different types of fibers can be woven together with a satin weave. Satin can be made out of anything. So cotton sateen is cotton satin, actually. I don't know why it's a different name, but or different pronunciation, different spelling, but it is satin cotton, basically. So it has this like shiny satin weave where it has like long fibers that are visible and creates this like shiny, smooth finish. So that's a wonderful fabric. You can find it at Joann's. They have like a 100% cotton version, and they have a version that has like 3% spandex that makes it just barely stretchy, and that's super wonderful. It's like one of my favorite fabrics. So I have like my favorite like go-to fabrics that I use often depending on the situation. Obviously, I like to use silk a lot of the time. If you follow me, I'm almost always using silk for something. But cotton sateen is a wonderful fabric as well. I also really like a huge variety of spandexes, and I use leather for a lot of stuff. So, let's see. Cactus Wolf said that they use their scrap satin to make their cat a tiny mortarboard, so you can take some crazy cat lady graduation photos tomorrow. That's super cute. I want to see that. I hope that you share those images with us if you don't mind. That sounds hilarious. I would love to see your cat dressed up for graduation. So I'm very carefully pinning these in such a way as so that my pin intersects with both of these lines. Now, normally when I use pins instead of clips, I orient them like this way along my stitching line rather than this way. And that is so that I can more easily move them as I am stitching along. But with this dart, I want to lining up two lines. It's much easier when you just position the pins along the line of the dart. Alright, so there's two of them that are pinned. You can see my pins holding them together. And now I need to do the left and right side of the back of the skirt. So setting that aside, and then we'll take it over to the sewing machine soon. Okay, so checking out the chat again to make sure I haven't missed anything. Ice Princess is heading out. If I haven't already missed you, then have a good night. Remaxian, nice to see you. Thanks for stopping by the stream, and I'm glad that you learned something new. Cal Claire is asking if I have any tips for navigating fabric stores. They never seem to have clear labels, and I'm not super familiar with types of fabric yet. Fabric stores can be really different, you know, depending on what store it is. But I can give you some general tips, I guess. If anybody else has information, please, by all means, include it. Oh, okay. Cactus Wolf already has an image for us. Oh my gosh, for the cat. That is so cute. And it looks like your cat also has like little tucks in your profile image. Oh my goodness, that's so adorable. Thank you for sharing that, Cactus Wolf. That's super cute. Okay, back to fabric stores. Rywalk, thank you for following. Places like Joann's are really frustrating because they have like so many different types of cheap fleece and like very little in the way of like nicer fabrics. I always get frustrated in Joann's because I feel like I'm just walking around and there's, for some reason, there's always no variety. So usually knits and wovens will be in different sections. And see, this is also, it really depends on what you're talking about, like what fabric store you're talking about. Because I go down to the fabric district a lot now for buying various fabrics. Now that I live in LA, I have that option. But before that, I was just going to Joann Fabrics in Dallas. And, you know, I could talk about them, but not everyone has access to a Joann's either. Louis Skeleton has followed, thank you. Holly says, Heidi, I drank too much. Is crafting okay? Yes, you absolutely. Crafting is definitely okay. You can make a drunk crafting item. Bloody Lollipops is here. Alright, I want to see what you come up with while you were drinking, Holly, because that sounds really good. Actually, I really want to drink. Alright, maybe I'll reward myself with a drink after I'm done with this stream. So, pinning that dart again. Yeah, I feel like my ability to give knowledge on navigating fabric stores is gonna be really limited because it depends on what fabric stores are available to you. So if anybody has a more specific advice for this person, please do include it in the chat. But I don't have, I guess I don't really have a lot to say on that subject. It's something that you will figure out more over time as you get used to going to more fabric stores. Usually things are arranged by the fiber type. That's a really common arrangement. So you can go through and, okay, silk will be in one section if they have that at all. Cotton, like quilter's cotton, which is usually printed cotton, will all be in one section. And you can kind of navigate that way by having some sort of idea of what fiber you're looking for. But my best suggestion is to just go in there when you have a lot of time and be prepared to look at and touch everything. When I am shopping for fabric, I just like run around the store and I touch almost literally everything. I'll find whatever color, whatever fiber I need, and then just touch every single option, because the hand of the fabric is how you refers to how it feels. Oh no, Nightbot got timed out. Sorry. Sorry, Nerds and Craft. Yeah, so just be ready to walk around a lot and touch everything and handle the fabric itself, and that'll help you figure out how it's going to drape and how it's going to be to work with. Okay, so I just finished pinning all of my darts and they are now ready to be stitched, and so I'm going to move my camera now for realsies. So hold on just a second and I'm just going to like adjust. Hopefully this isn't a nightmare. So I have like a little, my camera is adjustable, or what's holding it is adjustable rather. Oh no, I changed my mind. That wasn't how I'm going to do this. I'm sorry. I have it also unclips. I have another little guy here that's gonna help me get closer. So bear with me while I adjust this and find a new angle that's good for us for actually seeing things. Well, here we are. Oh, Anna's here. Nice to meet you, or nice to see you here. I know you. Welcome. Okay. So I'm gonna see if I can get this closer to my machine. Unfortunately, I don't have as much light over here, but still some. Oh, that's actually pretty decent. You can really see what's going on. Alright, this is still an experiment as far as how I'm gonna arrange everything in the future. Let me move my light too. So, thank you for being patient as I just like reorganize all of this stuff. Get some more light over here. Alright. Hopefully that's pretty good. Now I've got like this weird light coming from my shoulder, but whatever. What is catching? not too bad, right? Let me adjust this again. Too far. Let's see. Annoying Flowers is heading out because we've got finals. Well, thank you for stopping by the stream and hanging out with us for a while. Okay, Dr. Kentraz is asking, do I have any antique singers, or is utility your primary concern? I don't have any antique singers, but I have some antique Vikings. I never got super into singers. I don't have a lot of singer products in general. Oh, no! This is not... Let me readjust this again. Sorry, guys. Now I'm sideways. Oh, no. I was worried about this. Okay. This is like balancing itself better. Alright. We're just gonna go. Maybe in the future I'll have more like dedicated cameras and the ability to move between them in a way that is more streamlined, but not today. Is that gonna... Yeah, it's like the weight of it is making the camera move. See, there it is. It's just toppling. All right. I know I like had this set up earlier, and now I've messed it up now that the stream is actually going. Maybe I can get Jared down here to help me. Or maybe I can fix it my damn self. Okay, that's fine. You guys can see what I'm doing, that's all that I need. Alright. Oh, sorry for the link. Nightbot does not allow links, but if you ask a mod, they can set you up with permission. Alright. So now I'm going to sew these darts. There's a specific way that I'm going to be sewing them. Okay, good, you can see what's going on. Which I will explain as I go. So I'm setting this up along the line of the dart. I need to pull the pins out one at a time as I approach the point where they are stuck through the fabric. And I'm going to do a back stitch at the beginning of the dart, but not at the end. And there's a very good reason why, which you will learn shortly. A bit faster than I needed. Okay. Back stitching and then beginning my stitch for this dart. So one at a time as I approach the pins, I'm turning them sideways so that they are still holding the two pieces of fabric together in the exact same position, but they are not in the way of the needle as I stitch. Okay. So now that I've reached the point of this dart where my line is coming together, I'm going to let my stitch just totally run off the fabric. Like that. And I've reached the end, and now I'm just going to pull. Now this machine does automatic cutting for me. If I want it to, I can press a little button and it'll cut my threads, and then it'll just be magically better. Man, I really hate this light. I need to get better lights over here. Sorry, guys. Oh no, there's a raid! Oh, it's Fork Girl! Oh, sorry. Okay, so my chat will not allow you to use all caps. Sorry about that if you're all getting timed out because of your raid, but welcome. Thank you all for joining our sewing stream and for the raid. So, if you're just joining us, we are currently stitching... Oh, and I think I need to change my needle. We are currently stitching this skirt, and I am talking my way through using basic sewing patterns. And one thing that I did not do is change my needle type to be a ballpoint needle, which is ideal for stretchy fabrics. So let me really quickly do that. Or is this already a ballpoint? No, it's not. It's something else. And put in a new needle. Because I skipped a couple of stitches on that one because I was not using the correct needle type. Alright, give me just a second. Anna's asking, is this the machine that I won in the cosplay contest? Yes, it is. If you want to know the story behind that, you can watch the video on my YouTube channel. I did a cosplay contest where I was dressed as Samus in one of my costumes, and this was the prize. So, spoiler, I won. Yeah, I got this cool prize from that. Okay. There's got to be something better I can do with this light. Surely this light doesn't have to suck this much. It's supposed to be like over my shoulder, but it's just not getting into. There we go. So there's sort of a strong shadow on the other side, and now it's like right in my face. My face is a little bit blown out, but you can see the work better, so that's good. Okay. Fork Girl, thanks for joining us. Yes, a ballpoint needle is ideal for stretchy fabrics like spandex. This is, I couldn't tell you exactly, I should probably know. But this is a stretchy fabric that is going to be better with a ballpoint needle. I skipped a few stitches as I was stitching it, but I don't think it's really enough to compromise the strength of the seam, so I'm just going to leave it as is. And where I talked about getting to the end of my dart, and then leaving a tail here, I did not backstitch. That's because I didn't want to create the extra bulk in this point. And so instead, I'm going to tie the two threads off by hand because they come together at the very end. And then just clip the extra thread. Oops. And then with the help of our iron in a little bit, we'll be able to make that really nice and flattened out. Man, I really hate that my face is so bright now, but whatever, you guys know what I look like. Okay, yes, this is Celica's skirt. Thank you everybody for answering all of that information. Yeah, I don't like having my... I wonder if I can just make an adjustment on here. Bear with me, guys. Let me see if I can adjust my brightness on the camera. Oh, that helps so much. I'm just bringing the exposure up on my my webcam. I'm gonna save that, and then I'm gonna get this light out of my face. It'll still be on, but not literally in my face. Okay, that's much easier to look at, I think. Hopefully it is for you guys too. Checking back through chat questions. Let's see. Scarlet Letter is asking, have you ever used a twin needle before? Yes, I have. It's cool for doing like pin tucks, or if you need to have two lines of stitching right next to each other, it's super useful. Cool, awesome. All right, I'm glad that this is easier for you guys to view now. I'm gonna set aside the piece that I just stitched. I'm gonna just throw it on my laptop there. And moving on to the next one. Right here. So moving this pin out of the way. Some people sew over their pins, but I try not to whenever possible because your needle can strike it and then it can bend either the needle or the pin itself. And neither one of them is good. You don't want that to happen. So I remove them before they reach the needle. And once again, moving this, trying to keep it all flat so that the pieces do not shift against each other. Once again, reaching the end of the dart, my stitch will run straight off the fabric. And then I always like instinctually almost hit that cut button to cut my thread. but not this time. I need to make sure that it is long so I can do my little tail. And once again, okay, it looks like we have not skipped any stitches this time. That's awesome. So my new needle did the job correctly. Awesome, that one went really well. Okay, so I can tie these off by hand one more time and then clip them. Yeah, it's better to not sew over your pins if you can avoid it. Sometimes when like your fabrics are really shifty and tricky to work with and they're moving around a lot, you know, it can be helpful to keep that pin in up until the point where you sew to that spot. But you open yourself up to distorting your pin or distorting your needle and then, you know, potentially causing more problems based on that. So try to avoid it if you can. Okay, now we have darts here, and then in this top camera that is a little bit more obvious with the contrast of the black, our darts are now stitched in. And I have one more to go. Oh no. I'm hitting my cords and my laptop. Sorry guys, I'm gonna get better at this, I promise. All right. My sewing machine has a speed adjustment. I've got it on the fastest setting because I'm fast. Well, not that fast. But if it is too fast for you and you're intimidated by it, you can put it on a lower setting. But that comes with confidence, and confidence comes with experience. So I'm starting all my stitches with a back stitch. Oh, now it's really slow. I'll throw on the medium setting. So that the thread is like tied off more or less, so that the thread does not start coming out. And then just moving down the seam. Alright, and that is the end of our darts. One last one to tie off, and then we can start stitching these panels together, which is exciting. Alright. So the way that the pattern instructions, which I read yesterday and I'm not going to pick up again, the way that the pattern instructions tell you to do this is to do the side seams first. So for us, I'm going to take this the front piece, yeah, so this is the front piece of the skirt, and then I need to attach both of the side seams. So there is a straight edge, here we go, a straight edge and a curved edge. The curved edge is the side seam, and anytime you are sewing together, you want to put the right sides of your fabric together. Now, which side is the right side has to do with which side you want to be on the outside when you're done. And sometimes you'll buy a fabric that, you know, one side is intended to be the outside, the exterior, but then you look at it and you're like, oh, well, I like the other side better. And that's totally fine. You can do that as much as you want. You can use either side of the fabric, suits you better. Rick Robot Maker, thank you for following, as well as Shia Does Stuff. And Yankee Kitty, I think I missed that. I think I missed your notification, so thank you also for following. Okay. One other thing that I'm going to be using to help myself is this little, I don't know what it's called, I'm sorry. It's a magnet is what it is, and it is a guide. And this metal plate down here is what I'm sticking it onto, and so it's just going to stay in position. And it's going to guide my edge as I feed this fabric through it. There's a ruler here, but having this piece on, it just snaps on with a magnet. Super easy to do, super fast, and it's like using bumpers when you're bowling, I guess, I don't know. It prevents you from rolling too far off of that guide. So you can position it wherever you need to. I'm using a 1/2 inch seam allowance because that's what I like. Most patterns include a 5/8 inch seam allowance. So it's a matter of preference. If you're making your own pattern, you can use whatever seam allowance you want. Okay. So the perfectly correct way to be doing this would be to lay it out on the table and line it up that way and make sure everything is pinned in the correct position, but I don't want to deal with camera angles again. And so for that reason, I'm going to just go. I'm just gonna wing it, guys. You know, I know that these pieces they should be the exact same length with the exact same curve, and so it shouldn't be any problem to make them match up. We'll see how, whether or not that turns around and bites me in the ass very shortly. Let's do it. Alright, I'm sorry, I'm going to turn the speed back up because I need it. I have a need for speed. So keeping my edges lined up and just kind of realigning them with my hands as I'm feeding it through. The important thing about sewing with a machine is making sure that you're not pulling the fabric through. Like, you don't want your hand back here grabbing it and dragging it through, because you're going to end up messing up the feed system. So you really just want to let it do its thing. You might need to sometimes manhandle your fabric to make sure that it's staying in the correct position and feeding through properly. But in general, you want to, not sew off the edge without backstitching like I just did, but also not put pressure on the machine to, there we go. Not put pressure on the way that it's feeding your fabric through, and just let it do its thing. Alright, there we have one side seam. Good to go. Looking at the interior here, now it's starting to sort of take shape, and we are going to do our other side seam with this piece. Checking back in on the chat. Sapphire Gray is heading out. Have a good night, Sapphire. Thank you for coming, and we'll see you next time. Alright, lining that one up again, placing it right here. You want to make sure that your fabric is moving along in such a way that it is not creating more distortion, I guess. Like, if you let your fabric bunch up over here next to the machine, it can sometimes affect how it feeds through the machine. So just keep an eye on that, and you want to just keep everything steady. So that's why my hand is here, and it's like moving this extra bulk of the fabric along with me, so that I don't, so that it doesn't like get caught and twisted as the feed docks are pushing the fabric through the machine. Let's see. I don't have, Cactus Wolf is asking for information on a sewing machine suggestion. I feel like I'm not a great person to answer that question because I haven't been shopping for machines. Like, I have the one that I have several that I own that came from like other people or hand-me-downs, and then I have this one that I won in a cosplay contest. I have never in my life gone to the store and like looked at them and compared features and decided which one I wanted to buy based on what was available. I've never had that experience, except for when I bought my industrial machine, but that is probably not what you're looking for. So with that in mind, I don't consider myself a useful source of information on that topic. I can tell you that what I am using today is a Brother SE400 machine. This is sort of like a bottom of the line embroidery machine, so it'll do embroidery that is like this big. And here's my embroidery hoop in the bag it came in because I never used it. But it does embroidery, so there's an option. Oh, okay, sorry, that was from Ferocious Intentions, but Cactus Wolf is reposting the question. I just now noticed that. So that's what I can contribute to that conversation. If someone else has a more useful answer, please, by all means, put it in the chat and let Ferocious Intentions, let them know what you like using. But that is the answer that I can give you today. Okay, the last seam that I need to put together is this back seam, the center back seam that is connecting the two back panels. And this is also going to be the placement of our zipper. So before I start stitching this together, well, first of all, I'm going to use some Wonder Clips. These are Wonder Clips. They're little red spring clips, or they come in different colors, mine are red. They're little spring clips that you can use instead of pins to put your two pieces of fabric together. So I used pins when I was working on the dart because I thought that, pins are particularly useful for darts. Otherwise, I really like using these clips whenever possible instead of the darts. I'm sorry, instead of the pins, because they do not create distortion in the fabric the same way that pins do, like we talked about earlier. So I'm just plopping a few down along this line that I know I'm going to be stitching. There. Now, before I do that, I'm going to grab the zipper. I'm actually going to iron the zipper because it comes folded and I want to get the crease out of it. So let me iron my zipper and then I'll be right back, and I'm not going to move my cameras around because that's a big pain in the ass. So I'm just going to be off camera for a minute, but you'll all know where I went, and I'll be back shortly. I'm back. I have my zipper right here. So this is an invisible zipper. I'm gonna be installing it with a regular zipper foot though, because I figured that most people probably don't have an invisible zipper foot. And even though I have one, I also know how to do it manually, and that is really good. It's a good skill to have. So I'm setting this guy aside because I don't need him right now. I just took off the regular foot from my machine, and now I'm going to place this zipper foot down. Well, I'll show you first. It's a slightly different shape. It is made for sewing around zippers and being to help you navigate around the zipper tape itself. Angie Pants Cosplay, thank you for following. I heard your notification and I missed it, so thank you so much for joining us today. Let's see. Everyone's giving Ferocious Intentions good advice on helping to find a sewing machine, so hopefully they can find something that they like it. Okay. Now, before I put this in, I need my regular foot back. Sorry. Sometimes I get scatterbrained when I'm trying to talk and work at the same time. I'm keeping my foot in, my normal standard sewing foot in for now. I'm going to stitch the seam starting from here. I'm going to stitch about the bottom half of this seam everywhere except the place where we're putting in the zipper. Oh, you know what? Maybe I should hold off on the zipper until the facing is in. Or maybe I should consult the instructions. What would that do? I'm like, yeah, we're going to learn how to use a pattern. And then I just set the instructions down and walk away from it and never look at them again. Oops. Look. If this is your first time sewing, I'm sure you've already learned a lot here. So feel free to ask me your questions, and I'm just going to keep doing my thing. Cool. So now I've done like the bottom half of this. I am going to look at the instructions just to make sure they didn't want us to do something drastically different. I know how to construct the rest of the skirt, but I want to make sure that you guys know how to as well. LinkFan, $12.91, donated $20. Thank you so much. That's really kind of you. Thank you for contributing to the stream. And hopefully we'll keep making this bigger and better, so appreciate it. And welcome. Yes, you're just showing up. And Alpaca Ash is back, is that right? Yes! There she is. Cool. Welcome, Ashley. Welcome back to the stream. Let me grab my sewing instructions that I just abandoned and then decided to do whatever the hell I want instead. Okay. Alright, first it wanted us to sew the side seams together, which we did. So we can skip the sections that are labeled A and B because we're making dress C, and so we only need to know what's going on with dress C, which is going to skip us straight to another section of this pattern. Okay, it doesn't really say too much about skirt C in particular, and we are doing all the right things in the right order, so no big deal. I did the darts, first stay stitching, then darts, then side seams, then the back seam except for the zipper, and then the zipper, which is exactly the order that we've gone in. So this is actually the end of that pattern, this page of the pattern instructions. So I'm going to grab the next sheet and make sure that it doesn't have like super valuable information that we're missing. Yeah, it just wants us to do the zipper and make sure that it looks good from the outside, which is what I was gonna do anyway. So thanks for nothing, pattern. Just kidding. Alright, it means we're good to go. Alright, so we're moving this again for real this time. Changing this foot again for real this time. Putting my zipper foot in. Like I mean it. And then making sure my thread is tucked in and going back in the right direction. Okay. So this is an invisible zipper. When I got up and ironed it, one thing that I did was I unrolled the zipper itself. It comes like tightly rolled over to where the zipper itself is, quote, invisible from the front side. So once again, I should have probably not chosen black for this project if I wanted you to be able to see it, but this is what we're doing. So from the front of the zipper, just looking at it straight on, you cannot see the teeth of the zipper because they are tucked under. And the first thing I did was iron them so that they are laying a little bit flatter and we can get into the, get down into that channel with our stitching as closely as possible. So this needs to be positioned on the outside, which is this way. Yeah. So we're going to start with it on this side. Alright. So now that I've tightened it a little bit, loosened it up with the iron, I'm going to stitch directly down into that little channel next to the zipper teeth that is what's making it visible. Okay, yes. Oh, so many mods are here. Wonderful. And we are still going strong on our project. Let's see, what time is it? 9:17? That's not too bad. So, yeah, I'm just going to get as much of this done as possible, and I think that it's still feasible that we'll finish it tonight, so let's give it a shot. Oh, you know what? Nah, I'm going to install the zipper first, then we'll talk about you-know-what. We need to do a fitting and make sure that this is fitting me the way that I want it to. Yeah, this is correct. Basting your zippers in is usually a really good idea, by the way. I'm just not right now because this one doesn't need to. This will be completely covered up from the outside, so I'm not worried about it too much. Now I am reaching the point where I can't keep going without hitting my zipper itself, so I'm going to tie this off and do the other side. And I have a coffee over here. It's just stashed, just in case. Back to the other side. So it's a good idea to baste these together if you want to make sure that everything is lined up perfectly. To like stitch it down with like a temporary stitch and then double check it. But instead of doing that, I'm just going to clip it pretty liberally. You want to make sure your fabric is like laying flat. This is why it's a good idea to take it back to your cutting table and not try to do it on top of your sewing machine like I'm currently doing. Because you want to make sure that it's flat and lined up when both items are laying completely flat if possible. But, you know, I want to just stay on camera as much as possible. So maybe when I have a superior stream set up, I won't be cutting corners like this, but this is what we're doing today. And I'll put one pin, or not pin, but one clip in the back behind this tape, just to make sure it doesn't shift out of position. Okay, now going up the other side. So I'm using my left forefinger to try to like keep this rolled out so that my stitch is as close to these zipper teeth as I can manage it. Just about reaching the end of the zipper. You check back in on the chat, see if anybody has any questions. The clips are called Wonder Clips, or that's the brand of these clips. I'm sure there are some other brands as well. Oh, look at that. Our zipper, I think, looks nice. At least it does so far. Let's see if it's still working. Oh, yeah, beautiful. And it needs to be ironed down, but I think I did a pretty good job of getting close enough into that seam where it is properly invisible. And I should probably show it to you while I'm like, oh, yeah, it's invisible. It really is. And extra invisible on my camera. So let's do over here where you can actually see the seam a little bit, and there is a zipper in here now. Like that. So there we go. Oh, that's right. Ashley has a link to the Wonder Clips. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ashley. So if anybody wants to get your own, you can grab them from Amazon. That's where mine came from. Okay. Before I keep moving on, I'm going to take a moment and put this skirt on and just make sure that everything is the size that I want. Because right now would be a great time for me to take it in if I need to. And so I just want to size it on myself and make sure that it's fitting before I put that facing in that's going to create the waistline. So I'm going to step off camera and then just change right here because I'm an adult and I live here. So just a moment. Oh yeah, this is great. Alright, I'm going to show you guys how it's looking. Now this isn't finished, obviously, if you can see it. sort of see it. So a good ironing will help these darts lay flat. I have not done any ironing yet. They would make that not a problem. But the shape is good. It does fit me well everywhere. It's there's just enough ease to where it's you know, moving pretty nicely, and it's not like skin tight or anything. I need to finish up that zipper seam and iron everything flat. But I think it is definitely fitting me the way that I want it to. It's a lot longer than it needs to be right now because it still has to be hemmed. But it is definitely shaping up into the shape of the skirt that I want, which is the really important thing. So hopefully you can kind of see that. And you guys can see what's going on. Oh, Travelsome is here. Welcome, Travelsome. All right, and this is definitely taking the shape that I want and the general fit that I want for sure. It's not too tight, not too loose, and I don't need to make any adjustments. So glad that I did that awesome mock-up earlier. And, oh, we're gonna do one other thing. But first, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Thanks everybody who enjoys the skirt so far. I'm gonna take a moment for myself, run to the bathroom, and then we'll be back. I'm gonna do some serging on this before we keep moving on. Okay, I'm back. I have my skirt here. I grab the other fabric pieces that we've cut and prepared. So this is our facing pieces. Oh, I'm gonna adjust my camera again. Yes, hello, welcome back to my face. And checking out the chat, making sure that you guys aren't getting away from me here. Everybody's talking about what they're working on. That's exciting. So a lot of people sewing currently and doing cosplay. So that is awesome. DuoShock14, thank you for following. As well as Hood Bob the Thug Pants. Hood Bob. Hood Bob Thug Pants. I don't know why I didn't read that word properly, but there we go. So our facing is basically 3 parts. It is similar to a waistband, except that this one is not going to stick up beyond the pieces. This is just for the inside. So this one is obviously the front piece, because this is the double wide one. And then the other 2 are the back pieces. So I just need to make sure that I've got them lined up appropriately. Yeah, so this is the center back. Got it. So that's a center back, then it just needs to be put together like this to either side of the front piece. I'm just going to quickly clip them together. So that I don't have to figure that out again. Alright, once more, going back to the original sewing foot. Tucking my thread down. And there we go. Oh, that's awesome. Everybody's talking about everything that they're working on. It makes me so happy to see people, yeah, being productive. That's what we're all about. That's what I'm all about, is being productive and being creative. So yeah, I'm super excited to see people working on their own stuff here, and hopefully this can give you some information that guides you on your way. Or maybe not, maybe you just like seeing me mess up. So I'm just going to stitch the 3 pieces of this together, make sure everything stays lined up as it goes through. And then after this we need to do some ironing. Or did my thread just break? I think my thread just broke. It like broke up higher. Okay, that's fine. I just need to rethread this. I was at the end of I was about to tie it off. It broke while I was back stitching, so that's a bummer, but it's gonna be fine. Alright, that is threaded back once again, and that is stable. Yeah, that's a stable end, so I don't need to do that again. What I do need now is to iron all of these things. So I've been kind of trying to streamline this and make sure that I'm doing one step at a time, but at this point I really need to iron everything that I just sewed. Usually when you're sewing, you're going back and forth between your sewing machines and your iron and just like constantly pressing all of the seams that you stitch. So the more that you do that and the more you stay on top of that, the nicer and crisper your finished garment is going to look. Now I think I missed some stuff, so let me go back. Oh, awesome! Travel-some so that their store reached 20 sales. Congratulations. That's exciting. Alright, let me make sure this is all done. Peppermint tea, Crystal Fear is drinking. That sounds really delicious. Maybe I need to get more tea, but for now I'm just going to keep drinking my coffee. Alright. I'm going to leave my laptop here. Well, I'm going to slide it back a little bit. But I'm going to be brave and see if I can bring this camera over to my ironing board without messing anything up. Meanwhile, Warrior Kitten has followed. Thank you so much. So I'm going to be stepping away from the chat and not able to read your comments while I'm ironing, but I will be back and catch up on them when I'm not ironing. And meanwhile, this is going to come with me. Alright, yeah, you can pretty much see what's going on with that. Once again, I just need more lights around this whole room, I guess. It never really occurred to me, you know, how dark it is over here. Hopefully that can be pretty easily seen what I'm working on here. Alright, there we go. Now I'm just like creeping in from the face cam. Alright, bringing all of my pieces with me over to this side. And I'm going to bring the light too. So hold on for just a second and we'll get some light. How is that? Oh, that's much better. See, this warm light changes the color temperature wherever I put it, so Someday my white balance will be better. Sorry guys. I'm just gonna press these seams open. How are we doing on camera positioning? Can you see? Oh yeah, you can totally see. So I don't need to use this sleeve board necessarily. I just like to have it lifted up a little bit more for the camera. So I'm actually going to iron it from this side to help hold those tabs down. We'll see how that goes. When you're ironing fabric, the heat is what makes it able to remove creases or put new creases in, which is what we're doing in this case, is putting creases in. But it's actually, so the fabric is still malleable while it's hot, and you need to wait for it to cool down before you move it around a lot, basically. Because while it is hot, you can still manipulate it, and once it cools, that crease is set. So it's actually the entire process of being heated and then cooling back down that helps you to create like the really crisp seams. Oh. So this is another thing that I want to think about, is whether I wanted to serge all of this. Which is a question I'm still asking myself right now. Do I want to serge these seams? Now I can serge the seams together, like just serge it all in one go and get both sides together, or I can do it separately. But I think that serging it all in one go is going to be really nice. So I know I just brought everything over here, but I'm actually going to move again to go over to my serger because, as I mentioned before, I forgot what I was doing when I went to the bathroom. I want to serge at least part of this skirt. So let me check back in with the chat, see how we're doing. Leoto is heading out. Nice to see you. Thanks for coming by. Bethanator, and thank you so much for following. Welcome to our sewing stream today. Alright, I have one more piece of equipment that I need to drag everything over to. See if I can get away without having to move my light though. We're moving, sorry guys. Oh, and of course I'm dragging everything else with me. Here we go, another machine to look at. You can sort of see what's going on over here a little bit better. Ugh. I'm gonna bring that up. Okay, so I can see you guys. Oh, but you can't see me because my stuff is all messed up. Well, that's much better. Alright, there it is. My serger. Now I still need to make some adjustments on the serger itself because I just rethreaded this like right before we started, which is why my stream was actually a little bit late because I was still rethreading my serger. Alright, checking back in. Lin. Oh, everyone's seeing my Lin? Yes, I have a Lin Beifeng hiding right here. And another one right up there. I have a picture of some fan art. My waifu is here in my craft room because she makes me happy, and so I like to have her around. Okay, so I'm going to pick up some scraps off the ground, actually. And the reason why is because I need to test my serger and make sure that everything got threaded through properly. We have not used this since changing the color. Oh, and my settings are all set to 0 still. So let's put that back where I vaguely remembered having it. mentioned, I grabbed some scraps because I don't want to start sewing on my costume and then find out that my thread didn't catch. So let's do a test really quickly. Okay, that actually looks great. So this is an overlock stitch. It is going over the edge of the fabric with 4 different threads. And once again, I'm just gonna bring the light over here because if you can't see what I'm doing, then what's the point of all of this? Hopefully that brightens things up a little bit. So when I moved into this house, I had to put all of the lights in this room because the room was just super dark, and the one light that is actually built into this room was broken when I got it. Oh, you can see everything in the mirror behind me, so let's maybe not do that. Alright, whatever. Point is, you can see my face, you can see what I'm doing, so let's go. Let's rock. So, serging is optional. This is not necessary, but I want it for myself. This is the overlock stitch I was talking about. If you still can't see it, but maybe over here. Where it creates this little chain of thread that you probably recognize from your clothes. How much did my serger cost? Scarlet Letter is asking. It cost however much money my mom paid for it when she bought it for my sister when she was in high school. So I don't have an answer for that. Yet another machine that is a hand-me-down for me that I got because someone else didn't want it. But yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer for you on that. So serging is optional. It's something that you can do to finish the interior seams. And for us, it is just going to make everything look a lot more clean on the inside of this garment. Well, that added a lot of bulk there because I could not get it close enough. Oh, okay, never mind, guys. I'm not doing that seam for sure. So maybe not the waistband, or not the waistband, the facings, but I am going to do the structural seams of this skirt. So there's a number of different ways you can do this if you want to do it at all. But the way I'm going to do it is to put both pieces, to serge both seam allowances together. And in doing so, it's shaving off the extra material. And I'm doing that intentionally. There's a guideline here on the foot, and I'm making sure that my seam lines up with that guideline so that I'm not serging off material that I don't need, so that the seam itself is not moving. My new stitching is just going to hug the existing seam and trim off the extra, which is quite a bit. Serging is great for stretchy fabrics because you're serging, depending on the settings that you put it on, this can be a stretchy stitch. So it's wonderful for doing like spandex bodysuits, or in this case, a skirt that needs to be stretchy, a little bit stretchy. It's good for t-shirts, things like that where the material is stretchy. And it is strengthening and reinforcing the seam because everything is getting sewn together. So this is sewing with 4 spools of thread at once, and it also includes a cutting edge here that is cutting off external. Oh, is this another raid? I look up for a few minutes. Heart Raiders, who is leading you? Youngtown. Oh, it's Youngtown. Shane. Thank you for $5, Shane. Appreciate the tip. And we have yet another raid from, I guess, the Youngtown crew. Is that who this is? That has sub to Youngtown and the Youngtown love. So thank you guys. What a lovely raid. That is so beautiful. We are in the middle of stitching a skirt, if you're just now joining us. This is a sort of intro to sewing kind of stream, where now I just reinforced all of these seams that I sewed with a special machine that is overlocking the edges and binding them in thread, basically. That's the easy way of explaining it. Now, I'm not going to serge the center back seam just yet because I have to finish putting in that zipper, which maybe I should have done earlier. But, yeah, but that's where we are right now. And I already decided that this, I do not want serging on this. I thought that I would, and then I realized that I don't. So this facing is just good to go as it is. Now, with our serging complete, I am going to keep ironing, so heading back over there. And interacting really quick with the chat and make sure everything is good. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. And yes, go check out Youngtown. He's a gaming streamer, and he is a really fun and awesome guy. So thank you, Luke. Thanks for sending people here with all of the Youngtown love. I love it. All right. So once again, moving all of my shit, I'm going to bring my camera back over to the ironing station. We'll keep ironing. I know this is like the most fascinating ever. Oh, you can see get a little weird view of my room as I move all this stuff around. Someday maybe I'll have like dedicated cameras for the various sections of my equipment, but that day is not today. And once again, I'm walking away from the chat, so I can't really see what's going on there. But let me check back in with the cameras. Oof. And of course, I'm like tripping over all of these cables as I do it. Oops. How's that? Almost, it just needs to be really steady, which I don't trust it. Cool. All right. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. If you're still here, thank you for stopping by on your raid. And yeah, I'm gonna let this still chill here in front of my sewing machine because I'm not gonna be doing anything really interesting right now, but you can watch me iron for a moment and just press out these seams that we just did, and then we'll attach the facing, and that's gonna be the end of our stream tonight. So, a couple of things. I've got this board out, but I really don't need to use it. This is called a ham. Well, it has a couple different names, but this is one of the names for it, is a ham. And what this is a curved surface that you can iron on. So I need to iron this like dart, and I'm going to position my fabric on top of this ham, and you guys can all see that kind of right there. And it's all black, so it doesn't really matter. The point is, I'm ironing this, and you know that I'm ironing it, and the ironing is important. So we'll just leave it at that. Yeah, I don't want to attach my waistband without doing the ironing. Oh, okay. So I want my seam allowance oriented toward the back. I keep saying waistband. What it is a facing, so it's only on the interior, it's not on the exterior like a waistband would be visible from both sides. Press towards the middle. That's what I did. Away from the middle technically here. Okay. So I'm just like briefly pressing out all of the darts that we have sewn so that they're really flat. The important thing here is that this top seam is totally flat because we're about to marry this section to the facings that we've prepared separately. So I want all of my seam allowances and everything in these areas to be laying really, really flat because they're going to be intersecting along this edge. Away from the zipper, that's how we did it. Okay. Away from the zipper. So I'm just trying to be consistent with which sides I press the bulk of the seam allowance towards. I don't know if there are any rules about that. There probably are some rules, but I think that as long as I keep it symmetrical, it's fine. Usually you can go either direction. Okay. So there's all of that, and now this top seam is ready to go, and I'm going to call it good on that, and we'll go back over to the sewing machine. Boom. Let's see how it looks lit from this side this time. Maybe a little bit better, maybe a little bit brighter. We'll see. I don't want to get my hopes up. And the fixing. Okay. I'm back. You can see me again now. All right. Hi, Holly is back. Awesome. Or Holly's still here. I don't know if maybe Holly left or not. Who do we got? Echo Bear, thank you for the follow, as well as Hat Dog and Google. Thank you for following. And cool. So I'm caught up on that. If I missed your question in the chat or anything like that, please go ahead and repeat it if you would like an answer. But otherwise, I'm just going to keep sewing. Oh, she's still here. She's been here the whole time. I can't believe it. Thank you, Holly. And Draken Pern, thank you for following. So the last thing that I'm doing is this top seam. Here we go, over here, maybe. This top part of the skirt, which is along the waistline of the skirt, needs to be attached to this waistband. So once again, I'm putting right sides together and I'm just going to line it up where these seams intersect so that they are matching, and I'm just going to pin it as I go. If anybody has any questions about anything that we've covered tonight or any other sewing topics, now is a good time to ask them because I'm just going to be chilling and pinning. It's not going to be super interesting to watch. So now that I'm back in front of my chat, feel free to throw out those questions or whatever comments that you have about tonight's stream. And let me know what you think. Zombie Killer, thank you for following. Welcome to our sewing stream. Yeah, usually I've done leather working streams in the past, but I really needed to move on to some other sections of my costume. So sewing is what we're doing today. I'd like to keep going on the leather working though. It's a lot harder to maneuver throughout the room with all of the different equipment I use for sewing, whereas leather working all takes place on the table. So, you know, that sucks a little bit, but I'm trying to do the best that I can. Oh, Scarlet Letter says, who was the Wonder Legs on the wall? Glancing at all of the photos, I'm gonna guess you're looking at most vlogged. This is worth resetting the camera for. She's worth it. She's worth it. There she is. The red. Miss Scarlet Witch. One of her cosplays. She's a fantastic cosplayer that I've been following for many years now. And a cool person as well. So now you can see my Starbucks, but that's fine. Travel Sum is asking what I'm working on. It's just going to be the skirt tonight. I'm going to try to get it all the way done, except for the hems, which I'm probably going to do separately. And I think that tomorrow's stream will be about adding the detail, because it has like a white border along the bottom. So my goal for tonight is just to put this facing on, and then I'll probably call it a night on this stream. And tomorrow, whenever I start back up tomorrow, I will do like some custom bias tape for that white border along the bottom of her skirt, and do that as well. So that's going to be tomorrow's stream. Is more sewing, but hopefully less moving around the room to use various equipment. All right, so now the two pieces are pinned all the way along the top. Well, pinned, but clipped rather. Pin is just the useful way. Oh, Holly wants to show what she's working on. You should show what you're working on. Let me see if I can mod. Okay, you're a mod now, Holly, so you can post links if you want to do that. If you want to like post it on Twitter or wherever you want to post it, Instagram, and then now you can put links in the chat. So there you go, Holly. You can share whatever you want to share. Oh, she can't. Okay, now I see. So she can't show us. I guess she's under NDA. It happens. So you can't until June. So in June, we'll all find out what her project is. But now you are a mod anyway in case you want to share something else. How about that? Okay. So this is going to be our last major seam for this project. Well, aside from hemming it, that is. Once again, I've got it lined up with my guy. And this is not sewing, it's only sewing over the zipper tape, not the actual zipper teeth. So I'm just going to start at the very edge and get it all. So when you're sewing over multiple layers like this that have like seams that are intersecting, you want to make sure your seam allowances are laying flat in whichever direction you put them in. So just be mindful of that because there's like layers, extra layers of fabric underneath what I'm working on that can get like tucked on into each other the wrong way or whatever. So be mindful of that as you're feeding it through and just make sure that your seam allowances are flat where you want them. I'm lifting up my presser foot periodically just so that I can manipulate things and make sure all my layers are positioned where I want them. So that's why I'm doing that. I kind of do it instinctively as I move along, just periodically. And that is so that I can just make sure that everything is still layered the way that I want it to. So that's just something I do out of habit now, mostly, even when it isn't strictly necessary. Alright, that was pretty much the last seam that I needed, for now anyway. Let me check back in here. It's 10 p.m. so I've been sewing for about 3 hours. This is probably a good time to call it quits. But basically, this part that I just sewed is I sewed it this way. So this is the interior that you're looking at. It needs to be flipped over. And what I'm going to do next, but I'm not going to do this on the stream because it will just be frustrating for you guys to watch probably, is go back to the ironing board, flip that down all the way, and then iron it to create a crease here. And then honestly I need to top stitch it after that. But I think that you guys certainly have gotten the idea. I've shown a lot of my progress on this. I did as much as I possibly could, and I just don't want to make it any more difficult to get to these little areas. So, with that in mind, I'm pretty much going to call it a night for my streaming. I am streaming tomorrow as well, so this project will be continued directly tomorrow. And I'm going to do a little bit of probably finishing work on this because it's boring and it's hard to see, especially with my black fabric that has no contrast. So yeah, that's about it for me for tonight. It's about 10 p.m. 3 hours of streaming is a good amount of streaming for me. I get antsy after that. I have to go do other things. Holly, thank you for coming to the stream. And she says, thanks for give Aries a squeeze for us. I absolutely will. He loves being squeezed. He needs lots and lots of squeezes, so he's gonna get some squeezes. Thank you, Holly, for showing up, chatting. Binary Code, thank you for showing up and participating with us. Binary Code, and everybody else who's here tonight. People I know and don't know. This has been a lot of new faces tonight. So Kitten, thank you for your help as always. Travel Sun, thank you for showing up. Within One Tiger, yay. I'm glad that you were able to stay awake, and hopefully this had some useful information for you in it. I know I kind of got derailed toward the end as I was just focused on my project, but that happens. So tomorrow I need to decide exactly what time I'm going to be streaming because I haven't yet. But I will just keep an eye on my Twitter if you want to, or here I'll post a notification before I start. Oh, a Binary Code says that Jared recommended my stream, so thank you. Awesome. I'm glad that you took him up on that. So thank you guys for coming. We will be continuing the skirt tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have some of the finished work done, and we can put the hem into it and then do the little the border, the little white trim at the bottom. So all of that's happening tomorrow. Thank you guys for coming. I will see you next time, and have a good night.